It's a great day to be alive in Pittsburgh, PA, unless, of course, your name is Mike Sullivan, which we'll get to. Welcome into Kaboly and Mac, presented by the Dan Heck Team, HeckTeamHomes.com. We got to thank them for all their support. We got to thank Kaboom for being busy all weekend and still finding time to wake up this morning, wipe his nose a few times, smash a sandwich, and then join me anyway. Hi, I'm Chris Mack. We're here to talk about the entire Steelers draft, the entire NFL draft. Shedeur, did you hear? He slid. Mel Kiper was mad. And plenty more this morning here on Kaboly+Mack, as mentioned, presented by the Dan Heck Team, Heeck. Looking to buy or sell a home in the Pittsburgh area? They're the key to your next door. Dan, Michelle, Jeremy, Corey, John, Keith, Heather, Mike, Tia, the entire team waiting to help you. It is the perfect time of year to get into a new home, transition into your first home, whatever it may be. They're waiting to help you get it done at HeckTeamHomes.com. Kaboom, big news this morning, right before we came on the air. Penguins. I was going to say fired Mike Sullivan. They didn't fire Mike Sullivan. Mike Sullivan and the Penguins decided to mutually part ways. Okay.
How's mutual part ways go? Hey, I want to leave. No. Okay, it's not mutual, so we can't do this.
I think mutual parting of ways is, hey, you realize you're going to have to coach a bunch of young kids, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like coaching young kids. Well, I don't think you can be our coach anymore then. Okay, I'll go make more money in New York.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, and I can't blame Sullivan for wanting to leave. I mean, he's been around forever, has a great resume. Why would he want to rebuild from scratch again? There's really no end in sight. I mean, what are we looking at? Best case scenario, 3, 4, 5 years before they're Stanley Cup capable if everything goes right. So of course, if Boston's job's open, if the Rangers' job's open, teams that are closer to the Stanley Cup than the Penguins, and you have that resume and you got some bank and you don't have to. I mean, listen to what after the season. I mean, it didn't seem like he was really interested in a longer rebuild. I think
no, I don't think anybody is really. I mean, look, if like you said, if everything goes right, I think it could be faster than 3 or 4 years. I think if everything goes right, you're talking about a team that, in the NHL, you can turn things around pretty quickly these days, especially an organization that's always spent to the cap. It doesn't have to be all kids. You develop the right kids. Maybe jettison that Erik Karlsson contract if you can do that somehow and reinvest the money in some other places smartly over the next couple of years. You got an opportunity to turn the roster around. You could be back in the playoffs in a year. You could be back deep in the playoffs in a couple of years.
Playoffs and potential championship runs are two different things. And what you said, everything has to go right. I mean, they got a ton of picks. And, one thing we saw from Sullivan over the past year or two is I don't know if it's interested or good at of developing players. He's more, to me, as a guy that could take the stars and bring them to the next level rather than taking the young guys and develop them into stars.
He doesn't have the patience at this point in his career, I don't think, to spend the time going through the mistakes that young players make and trying to coach them up. He wants guys that are ready to go now. I don't want to say he wants ready-made success. That's not the right way to put it. But you look what he took over in 2016. He took over a team that was built to win a Stanley Cup, and he guided them to it. I'm not saying he didn't coach them well. I mean, the man won back-to-back Stanley Cups. So he deserves all the credit in the world for that. But you're right. He fits much more in the Tortorella, Peter Laviolette mold of, hey, I'm not here. I ain't got time for these kids. F them kids. I just want to win. I want guys who know what to do now. And I can install a different system with them, or I can do this, or I can coach them on that. You're right. I don't think he necessarily has the time to deal with kids who are still developing and you're trying to figure out if they're any good or not, which brings people to the idea. And I know you're not elbow deep kaboom, like you are in the football world, into the names of coaches who may be applicable for the Penguins job coming up. But
I could tell you who I think it should be.
you think it should be?
I think it should be a young and upcoming guy that's trying to establish himself, who will take these draft picks that they're going to have and have these young guys and mold them into champions rather than a guy that's been established. I want a young guy. I want a young guy who is hungry.
So the name that's going to come up, that's already come up a million times this morning, is David Carl. He was the head coach at the University of Denver for the last, I want to say, at least half dozen years. He's only 35 years old. He'd be younger than the franchise icons that are still on the roster, which doesn't mean he couldn't coach them, right? He could actually probably use them as a tool to help bring these young guys along. But David Carl is the name that you're going to hear a lot of people mention. I tend to agree that that's what this organization needs. The two things you have to ask yourself is, does Fenway Sports Group want to go that route, or do they still believe that they should be closer to competing immediately, which is kind of the task they gave Dubas when they brought him in, right? Like rebuild on the fly and keep us contending and competing. But I think they have to come to the realization that that's not likely at this point. Like you said, it's going to take some time. Even if we have a differing opinion in timelines, it's still going to take some work. So, like, I don't think it necessarily behooves them to just promote Mike Vellucci, to bring back Todd Reardon. That name's going to get thrown out there. To bring back some of the retreads like Gerard Gallant, Claude Julien. People will throw out Bilesma's name. I don't know why, but they will. David Quinn, who was an assistant under Sullivan this year and has been an NHL head coach before. People are going to bring up Tocchet if things don't settle down in Vancouver and he gets some sort of assurances with the Canucks. I don't know if any of those names necessarily make more sense. I don't think this team needs a late 50s, early 60s head coach.
I think the best place to look at is or what the heck's his name? The general manager. Why is he skipping my name?
Kyle Dubas?
Kyle Dubas, who has a history with
him. It's a Monday morning. You're good.
No, I was looking at something else on my phone again. I'm not paying attention. But Kyle Dubas, you look at who he's had a history with. Because I don't know if the Fenway Group's going to – maybe they'll sign off on it. But if you're bringing in Dubas to be the GM / head of hockey, whatever his title is, or what he wanted to be, the president or whatever it is, he needs to make the decision, and you have to look at the guy who he's been maybe had history with. Definitely. That's the first one I would look for. And isn't that the guy in Jersey? Help me out.
The guy in Jersey. Could you be any less specific? The guy in Jersey.
Who's the head coach in Jersey right now?
They're about to lose in the playoffs, so I don't know if that's necessarily one that anybody is racing to sign up for. Are you racing to sign up for a guy?
Sheldon Keefe. Didn't he?
Yeah, he and Keefe were together in Toronto.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe somebody like that.
Maybe Keefe gets bounced after the Devils. I don't know.
Somebody who has a history with Dubas.
That's an interesting name to keep an eye out for, I guess. We'll see which way it goes. Best Pens coach of all time, Mike Sullivan.
Are we talking about longevity, or are we talking about a time?
I think that's part of the conversation. How do you define? So
Badger Bob had a tough task, and he only had a year or whatever, but he changed the culture of this organization.
Yes. So there's two ways to go about this. I think you could talk about the best coach to ever have also coached for the Penguins, obviously, is Scotty Bowman. Scotty Bowman's a legend. And then Badger Bob, probably. Herb Brooks is in the conversation, right? Miracle on Ice. But I think if you're talking about the guy who...
Kramer?
Who?
Pierre Kramer.
You're just throwing random names out.
I guarantee he coached in the 90s or the 80s. Pierre Kramer, 89, whatever. Hey, by the way, Sullivan won with Mike Johnston's players, but go ahead.
Right. Thank you. I was waiting for that. I think, in my opinion anyway, he's the best Penguins head coach of all time. Like, the guy was here for nearly a decade. He won back-to-back cups. I know it's multiple years, 5 years? No, it's 7 years. How many years has it been since they've been in the damn playoffs? Too long.
8?
So 2016, 17,
18
playoffs in 18. So 19.
They got eliminated by the Capitals in round 2.
Do we count 2020? That was a play. No, so in 1920.
Yeah, that was the playing game, right? Or whatever that heck that was.
The preliminary round. So it's now been 5 years without a playoff.
You can count the Pirates of winning a playoff series. You can count that as a playoff series loss then.
Right. Whatever. Despite the drought in the postseason, he's still the best Penguins coach, I think. He's the most winningest Penguins coach of all time, if nothing else. Certainly.
Michael, right? Michael. That's an inside joke.
Nobody gets it.
There's a couple people who get it who.
Nope.
There's only one person that calls Sullivan Michael, so that's all I got to say about that.
All right, just let it go.
He does not appreciate it.
No, but that person has a habit of doing things that nobody appreciates. So what?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of people were talking about this on the comments. Are talking about the Stellars, and they don't really care about the Penguins.
We're going to get into it in a second. It was big
news. We're losing the audience.
Big breaking Berg news. Who's complaining about us bringing up the Penguins firing their head coach?
Maybe
that's a big piece of news. I don't see anybody complaining.
We don't know who they're going to hire.
You're complaining in the comments. You're the only one complaining.
2 more years on his deal. Yeah,
which they won't have to worry about when another team hires them, like the Rangers or the Bruins. Anyway, thanks also to our friends at Southwest Greens. Get the best looking yard in the neighborhood with the least amount of maintenance with the Southwest Greens artificial surface. Maybe you just want a little tiny corner in the yard where you can do some putting. Maybe you want something nice around the pool area if you have one, something nice around the play area for the kids. It's fine for kids. It's great for pets. Everybody can go out there and use it like it's real grass because it looks like real grass. It feels like real grass. It's gorgeous, and you ain't got to spray chemicals on it to kill the weeds. You don't have to water it constantly. You don't have to mow it constantly, weed whack, edge trim, none of that. SouthwestGreensPA.com. Tell Jake the Kaboly+Mack sent you, and they will get out there and give you a quote on what, like I said, will be the best-looking lawn and the best-looking yard in the neighborhood with the least amount of maintenance. SouthwestGreensPA.com. All right, let's get into the draft then, Kaboom, because that's what you worked hard on all weekend long. And
hey, by the way, there's the odds out for next year's first-round pick. Can you name 1 and 2, the highest odds of being drafted first?
First overall?
First overall.
Arch Manning, I'm sure, is one of the 2.
He's number 1. Who's number 2? Or I wouldn't be bringing this up. Imagine very important interception in a semifinal game.
Aller?
Yep.
This is what's weird. And I do want to talk about next year's draft, not in so much as like what players may go, because we're a year away from that, but just the idea of it being in Pittsburgh a little bit later. But that's straight. I saw a couple
far away from whatever that feels called, Acrisure next year. If I can cover that from like Harrisburg, I would.
See, here's the problem. My kid wants to go now. My kid has reached the age where he sat and watched, I'd say, half of the draft, if not 2/3 of it. Like, we had to have it on all weekend in our house. And then when he realized it was coming to Pittsburgh next year, he was all in on going to at least part of it next year. And if that's what the kid wants, I'll take him down there into the madness for a bit. I don't care.
Yeah, 200,000 people in a sea of humanity. I'll pass.
Of course you will.
There's about a million different things I'd rather have do than sit in that massive humanity. And I would be on record right now is I would welcome a colonoscopy over sitting in that crowd of 200 and some thousand people just watching a screen.
Yeah, I don't get the attraction either. But if the boy wants to do it just to say he did it, and then I could say I told you so later, then by all means, I'll fulfill the kid's dreams and wishes.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do.
Just we'll go down.
Just like Jeff Ulbricht's kid, fulfilling everybody's dreams. I mean, that's fun. The whole thing is funny, but then you realize that your dad's like the D coordinator. You're like,
I just don't understand. Like, look, we're all guilty of doing stupid things as kids.
Oh, I could have seen.
But this is a 21-year-old. Like,
I would have done it, but maybe not if my dad was a
Yeah, don't you know that that's going to get back to you somehow?
Plus, you post it so everybody knows who you are, dummy.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Kids in this day and age, they're smarter in a lot of ways. They're also a whole hell of a lot dumber in some ways. That makes no sense, the whole Jax. Now, it also doesn't make sense that there's people. I saw Matthew Berry was apoplectic over this online last night, talking about the league needs to do more. What do you want the league to do, right? Other than ensure that, things are safeguarded a little bit better going forward. Jeff Ulbrich walks away from his laptop with it open. He doesn't expect his grown-ass kid to walk up behind it and steal Shedeur Sanders' number so he can make a prank call later. What's the league going to do about that?
I hope he has his Instagram monetized at least, right?
Yeah, hopefully for his sake.
A couple bucks.
Let's talk about who the Steelers drafted. We already talked, obviously, on Friday about the Derek Harmon selection. And then we sat and we waited. And like we predicted, we're not going to hurt ourselves too much patting ourselves on the back this morning. But there were some things that were predicted on this show last week that definitely happened over the weekend. One, they didn't show a huge sense of urgency in getting back into the second round. It would have been nice, but they weren't going to do all that needed to be done to get back into the second round. They were going to sit and wait. And look, the way the board fell in the second and third rounds was perfect for them, Mark. Like, there were defensive tackles on the board. There were running backs on the board. And they end up jumping on a running back that a lot of people expected to go a full round earlier.
Yeah. I mean, it did break pretty nice with them. Plus, don't forget that the George Pickens trade talk was really never.
It was never.
I mean, once again, you take a call and say, okay, no thanks.
Yeah.
So that was never. They're not interested in moving him unless something crazy happens and he demands it, and that's was the case. We knew that they were going to. We assumed that they were going to go 2 defensive linemen, and they did within the first 4 rounds. But Caleb Johnson's a guy is. He, like you said, you didn't expect him to be there at 83. And he brings that Najee Harris type of style, as in a big, bruising, powerful guy that has some more giddy up in him.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the clips you see of him, there's some wide open holes. There's some pancakes there that mean you could gain about 7 yards through right there. You're always skeptical with it, although it's a great value, and that's what all you can really grade right now, I think, is value and need, and they need it. They both hit that at that point. But is he going to turn into a star? Those running backs, even if they do have a high pedigree, are usually hit or miss. I mean, he could come out and be a star, or he just might not have what we think that he has in college can transfer over to the pros. Like I said, even though I thought it was a good pick, good value, that's the one you still have to say, let me wait and see what he can do. Because unlike Harmon, where I'm pretty sure he's going to be a stud,
Yeah, I feel great about Harmon. And the reason I repeatedly said Cam Hayward 2.0, and we mentioned that over and over again, is because we really believe that's the high-end potential for him. That's the ceiling. Multiple time all pros, all that kind of stuff is in his future if everything goes well. I think the difference between Caleb Johnson and the guy that he's replacing, while on the field there may not be that much of a difference, you talk about, take what you get with open holes. And Najee did the same at Alabama. There's a little bit more of that top end speed, like you said, that giddy up, that if he breaks through to the second level, he can turn a 8 or 10 yard run into a 25 or 30 yard run. He can turn a 15 or 20 yard run into a 50 yarder, and he can break it off and take it to the house sometimes, which Najee just wasn't capable of. And also, you add on top of the fact you got this guy at 83, you got Najee at 24.
Yeah,
there's a massive difference.
I'm just trying to think I think they had very similar 40 times.
Yeah, I think
Caleb was 4.57. I think. What was Najee? Was probably in that range as well, but he never had the burst in college. I mean, he never had it in college. So what made him think he was going to do it here? So I think he was a good mix like I said, of the power, the speed. I mean, he's 6'1", 220, 230.
He's
And
basically
that's
built
very
like Najee.
Le'Veon Bell size. Le'Veon was a little bit heavier when he came in. He slimmed down uh, after his first year, and he really turned it up a little bit. I don't think it's quite fair to compare those two right now, but they needed the position. They really, I think, strengthened the position. But I'm not assuming that Caleb Johnson's coming in and being a week 1 starter.
No, I think we'll probably get a pretty fair 50-50.
I think by whenever the bye week is, that might be the time where you're like, all of a sudden it's starting to push that way, towards more Johnson over Warren. I mean, if everything remains equal, as in
which I'm fine with. Like, it's going to take him time to pick up protections and things like that. I don't know if he's necessarily the most polished pass catcher. Things like that take time, especially at the NFL level. But if you could take a ball, run between the guard and tackle, and turn it from, just like Najee did early on, right? Turn it from a 1-yard loss into a 3-yard gain, or turn it from a 3-yard gain into an 8-yard gain, and so on and so forth. If you could take those runs and make more out of them than what's presented to you more often than not, then I think this is going to end up being, again, great value, which is what the story of this draft was for the Steelers.
Yeah, Najee was 4.66, and I think Johnson was a 4.57. But just watching him on tape, you can see Johnson he came across as like a quicker, faster guy. Even though he would get pulled down from the behind angles and stuff like. He's not going to run away from you like Barkley, but I think he's a solid mix of both things that they want.
Well, I saw someone write over the weekend that he'd been gunned at like 22 miles an hour top end speed at least once or twice during the season, which is like DK Metcalf type speed. I don't know how often we're going to see that. And like you said, I don't know how often we're going to see him break away at the second level and leave guys in the dust, but he's faster than Najee when it comes to breakaway speed. And again, you got him at 83, not 24.
And what did Arthur Smith say? Explosiveness. He kept saying it over and over again on Friday, where I finally had to jump in and say, man, you said explosive about 8 times already. This must be really something you guys were focused on. And he pointed toward the middle of the season when they were more explosive. They ended up playing better ball, better offense. So that was a big key for them to get explosive with DK.
Which is another reason you don't trade George Pickens.
Exactly where I was getting to, yes.
It's like that offense bogged down when Pickens was hurt and out for a few weeks and didn't bounce back when he came back. I'm not saying it was all because Pickens was hurt, but when you can't lift the lid off the defense, as Tomlin likes to say, or find that explosiveness, as Artie was relaying over the weekend over and over and over again, well, then everybody stacks the box, and then you can't run the ball, and then there's nowhere to throw the ball, and then there's a passer. Everything breaks down when you can't do anything more than 10 or 15 yards downfield. We saw that a year ago, and the year before that, for that matter. So if you can't stretch the field, that affects the entire offense. Other side of the ball, I was surprised that they took him, but not like disappointed. Jack Sawyer at that spot in the draft, Kaboom. I said this on X over the weekend. Imagine being an offensive tackle and you're fighting with Highsmith and Watt, and they take a blow and they jog to the sidelines, both of them at the same time, like, oh my God, thank God I don't have to deal with Highsmith and Watt for a couple plays. And then all of a sudden, here come Herbig and Sawyer. I mean, they're not Watt and Highsmith, but that's a damn nice backup pair of edge rushers to have in your defense.
Yeah, I mean, the depth is key. I mean, we saw Highsmith and Watt get injured, even Herbig get injured the past couple of seasons, and you'd have to go scrambling for a veteran at that position. I mean, Sawyer, he's being converted to DN, I believe, the outside linebacker. But Steelers are pretty good at recognizing who can and cannot do that. But he's just a ball player. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of these guys being drafted middle rounds like this, linebackers that didn't pan out because one reason or another. But Sawyer just seems like that guy that, I mean, he might not be an everyday starter right away. He might be a guy that you put in there 3 or 4 years down the road. He might be a guy that goes.
Hey, trade TJ, trade TJ. Oh my God, a nickel for every time I heard that.
Right next to say Harmon, this guy seems like a can't miss. I don't know how he dropped to 120-ish, something like that.
Yeah,
he seems like a ball. He's just a ball player. Loves ball, as they say.
So that's another common theme. And another thing, again, we talked about last week. They want guys that love football. Mike Tomlin said as much basically during their pre-draft press conference. They want guys that love ball. And so that's what you get in a Jack Sawyer. Like, you get great college tape. Go back and watch the the Cotton Bowl and then the national championship game. Basically every big game Ohio State played this year, even the losses. And you'll see that. That's a dude that just like oozes football. So makes a ton of sense. And I think if you can rotate those 4 guys at edge, man, it's going to do a ton to save Watt and Highsmith late in games and late in the season too. If you can get them off their feet for 5 to 10 plays every week, then that's huge. Like I said, in the fourth quarter of those games, and then in the fourth quarter of the season.
Yeah, I don't think they went in thinking we want to add the edge. We don't want this position. But when you're in the fourth, right?
Yeah.
And you see this guy there, I mean, you just pick best available, best athlete. He's a guy that makes big plays. You see it. You saw it in the college football playoffs. He just always was around. And you saw his when they called him and told him that he was drafted by the Steelers, dropped about 4 F-bombs. And
yeah.
He might have been talking to Art for all we know, right? I mean, that's great.
But this is the guy, too, that, like, I laughed at it at the time, and I always laughed this kind of stuff in college ball. But, like, when Michigan beat them and Michigan was, planting the flag, he's the guy that ran out there to, like, try and rip it out of their hands, which, again, I find all that stuff silly at the college level. Like, Devin Bush trying to fight Michigan State's entire roster when they walk too far over their 50-yard line, or stupid crap like that you get in college ball. But that's the level of intensity that you want in dudes, especially at that position.
Jack Sawyer is a guy that, probably eats his steak raw.
Cannibal sandwiches.
Very, very, very. He's a very rare steak guy.
Cannibal sandwiches.
No A1.
No.
He might not. He might eat rare hamburgers too.
I'm telling you,
he just grabs a hot dog and doesn't even heat it up.
I bet if we offered Jack Sawyer a cannibal sandwich, he would eat it. And he would eat it with glee. The stuff would be stuck in his teeth, the ground meat, and dripping off his chin, and he'd be happy.
I'm surprised they haven't taken the Permanis yet.
Has he been in town yet?
I don't know.
When he is, that's a Permanis guy.
I don't know how they're
that's
doing
a cap and cheese with an egg on top kind of guy.
He's definitely an egg guy.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Double meat and an egg, please. Thank you. 5th round, they got an absolute monster in Waye. Am I saying that? Waye Black? Waye Black.
Waye Tittle.
6'6", 336. This dude's a behemoth.
Dude,
I don't know how much time
he was 235 years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. He put on like 100 pounds in college, which he gave all the credit in the world to the Iowa strength program. I don't know how much time he's going to see on the field right away, but this is a dude that just because of his mammoth size alone, you're going to have to get on the field in rundowns, I feel like.
Yeah, he just I think the Steelers Schefter reported they just bumped Montravius Adams.
Oh,
he was one of the most. He's if that's true, he was one of the more undersized defensive linemen. You probably replace him with one of the bigger ones. Mm-hmm. Once again, he's a guy that's going to be scheme oriented. When you go up against maybe the Eagles, the
Ravens,
maybe the Browns, since they don't have a quarterback right now.
And they got 2 really good running backs too. Like the Browns did a lot of stupid shit this weekend, but getting Judkins and Sampson together in the backfield, yeah.
I mean, that's the type of place where a guy like YA I was going to call him Yaya again, but now YA
don't do that.
Is going to be able to earn his money, I think. I mean, maybe he's not necessarily – he's going to have to play more than nose. He's going to have to kick in a little bit. But I think early on in those short yardage, those
if
push situations, you're like, bro, don't let anybody push you out, man.
Yeah, if you tell me it's 3rd and 2 against the Ravens and I can put Y.A. Black and Keanu Benton and Derek Harmon and Cam Hayward on the field together up front, I'm happy with that. Absolutely. That's a whole hell of a lot better than where they were back in December and January. Absolutely. So I like that pick too in the 5th round. Before we get to the 6th round pick, I'm going to skip over it for a second. I'm going to go to the 7th round. Dante Kent, D-back out of Central Michigan. They draft him with their final pick of the draft. But with the early 7th round pick, again, not to hurt ourselves, patting ourselves on the back, Kaboom, but you called it in your mock draft, Carson Bruner.
Oh, that was a layup, man. I had him going in the 7th, I believe.
Well, that's where he went.
I mean, he was like not their last pick, though. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, gotcha.
Absolute layup. I mean, we're talking about late in the draft. You're looking for guys who can obviously do special teams more than anything, and most of those guys come from as linebackers. I mean, he has the pedigree. The old man's one of the all-time greats. The old man is a scout. I mean, what's the difference between picking him in the 7th at 220 or bringing him on as an undrafted free agent? I mean,
right.
You show an all-time great player some loyalty by bringing his son in that you probably would have brought him in anyways, guaranteeing him a couple bucks, not a ton. I mean, that was absolute slam dunk right there, I thought.
Slam dunk.
Plus, hey, he's undersized. Was he 220? But he still somehow found to have ability to have like 190 tackles over the past 2 years. So he got a nose for the ball. I don't know if he's going to quite fit.
At the very least, he's a special teamer to start, right?
Well, probably.
And then who knows? Like with the way things go at inside linebacker for this organization the last 5 years or so, hell, maybe you don't wish it, but somebody gets hurt. You need to have depth there. You never know if he's out there at the same time as Peyton Wilson. I don't know what the inside linebacker look. You've got Queen. You've got more than enough guys there.
Harrison, I think, is going to be an underrated guy until we see him on the field and we're like, hey, this guy's not that bad. And the guy from Baltimore. So I think he's going to be pretty decent.
But I think, Bruner as a depth piece inside.
Holcomb, I forgot all about Holcomb, too. I keep forgetting about him. He was our starter 2 years ago.
A healthy Cole Holcomb. We'll see what he looks like in camp. And then the 6th round pick. Let's go back to the 6th round. Will Howard, the quarterback from Ohio.
That's everybody's love. I've seen him compared to Tom Brady, Big Ben, a little Big Ben. So roll here a little bit here.
So I was notably not a fan of drafting Will Howard or a Kyle McCord or a Quinn Ewers or I don't know, name the half dozen quarterbacks that Riley Leonard that are all very similar. But I'll be on. I watched the Gruden quarterback camp thing with Will Howard last night. Like the dude does seem to pick up on stuff fairly quickly, and he is built like a horse. He's 6'4". And I mean, at least as a developmental backup, if the worse he becomes is like you said last week, you get one of these guys in and he becomes a Landry Jones for 5 or 6 years, a solid, dependable backup who's familiar with the system and you can go to in a pinch should your starter get hurt. You can do a lot worse with a 6th round pick, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely great value at that spot. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's a national champion. What you love about him is you just look at those stats in the college football playoffs. He was spectacular. He played his best ball when it was needed the most. I mean, is he going to be able to transition to the NFL and be anything? I'd say no. I'd say if he sticks on the roster, the best thing he's going to be is a backup at best, maybe a third stringer. But I'm willing to take that shot. You need a long-term developmental project, even at the backup spot. I mean, this is a guy that at least we know one thing. They're not going to turn over their quarterback room 3 years in a row because he should be back next year, right? But I'm not expecting him to play. He should get a lot of reps when Rodgers comes in. Wait, if Rodgers comes in,
be careful.
how much is he really going to practice? A lot. I mean, they need to be able. What they need to do is do him a solid and really put a lot of emphasis on developing this guy.
Well, they could.
What they haven't done with Kenny, I don't think they did early on. We know they didn't do it with Mason.
Right. Like, I think they could do a whole lot worse if Rodgers comes in, than a quarterback room of Rodgers, Rudolph, and Howard, because each serves their purpose. Rodgers is your stopgap 1-year starter, and maybe you get some occasional lightning bolts out of his arse and you win 11 games and somehow steal the division. And who knows what can happen at that point, right? Mm-hmm. Rudolph is old reliable, right? You know he's going to be there. You know he's going to be ready. And if everything goes to shit, he can drag you to the playoffs at 9 or 10 wins. We saw it happen just a couple years ago.
I think Mason's very underrated.
I think so too. People still driving me nuts over the weekend, still talking about the Steelers like they don't have Mason Rudolph on the roster and he didn't take them to the playoffs a couple years ago. Drives me nuts.
I mean, it's crazy thought. They look what he did at Titans. Like, you could have Tom Brady. You could have Tom Brady in his prime, and he wouldn't have let those Titans to more than 4 wins last year. So you can't blame him for that. And then I think they're in a good spot. Honestly, you look at this roster overall, Mac, and this roster has talent on it. It's just a matter of, can you get it all, starting to come together there, Pepper, right?
Yeah, starting to come together, Pepper.
I think they're a pretty good team. They got talent in basically every spot. Now, that does not necessarily translate into wins, but at least put it this way, Omar in the scouting department and Andy Weidel did their job. Now it's time for Coach T and his guys to do their job.
And back to Howard for just a second in the quarterback room. You're right. It's time for everybody to do their job and bring the guys along. And that's the position where I'm not saying this is the case, because, again, I was not high on the Will Howard pick or the choice of any of these quarterbacks in the 5th round or later, because I think they're all career backups. Like I said the other day, I think most of them, if not all of them, will be coaching high school football in the next few years or selling insurance or whatever 4th string quarterbacks do. But if you coach them up right and you give Will Howard a year to watch Aaron Rodgers and or Mason Rudolph perform and how they handle themselves, then you never know what can happen. I don't think he's Tom Brady, but you don't know unless you roll the dice occasionally.
Okay, let me pose.
I'm willing to grant some grace on this pick, even though I wasn't a fan of it originally.
Let me post a question to you now. Right now, as we know everything we know right now, would you rather have Shedeur Sanders or Will Howard? Right now. God. I think I might go with Will.
Yeah. I think I end up walking away from it saying Will Howard, I guess. It's going to be something to see what happens with Shedeur, which, by the way, we got to talk about the slide in just a second.
I'd rather talk about Mad Mel.
We can talk about that too. Thanks to our newest sponsors, Nail Studio 2 in McMurray and Peters Township. They are there. This is the time of year where, look, maybe you want to get mom something or your wife something for Mother's Day. Maybe you're like me. You got a teenage daughter that's going to the prom soon. She's got to get her nails done. You send her to Nail Studio 2, McMurray, Peters Township. So anywhere, easily accessible from anywhere in the South Hills or Washington County. Nail Studio, Roman numeral 2. NailStudio2.com. You can give them a call, 724-941-4595, 724-941-4595. Under new ownership, they will get you, if you purchase a $100 gift card for mom in-store only, their Mother's Day special. You purchase that $100 gift card for mom. You'll also get a complimentary $20 gift card on top of that for a future service for you. So kaboom, you can finally go get the pedicure done.
No,
okay?
Honestly, if you have young kids and they're like, what are you getting mom for Mother's Day? That's basically your decision, right?
Yeah.
I think I might
This is it.
She's working over there. So, yeah, I think I might be heading down to McMurray.
Yeah. I mean, easy to get in and out at Donaldson's Crossroads right there on 19. So check them out online, nailstudio2.com. That's a Roman numeral 2, nailstudio2.com. Again, you can give them a call, 724-941-4595, 724-941-4595, or stop in, like we said, get that $100 Mother's Day gift card. Don't tell her it's a gift from the kids, and then the extra $20 gift card on top, which, I don't know. I don't need to do anything with my fingernails, but I'm seriously considering the pedicure angle, maybe. Anyway, the Shedeur slide. Were you as shocked that like the entire ESPN analyst team had to take on Mel Kiper the way they did on Saturday afternoon? I mean, Louis Riddick, Reese Davis, and
he cooked him, huh? What was the young kid say? Cooked him?
He cooked him.
He cooked him?
They were trying to explain to Mel that, like, listen, it doesn't matter how you graded the guy. It doesn't matter how anybody graded the guy.
Who the hell's Mel Kiper anyways?
Right. He's the guy who said if Jimmy Clausen was a failure in the league, he'd stop doing what he does. And
I mean, he could have made his point and let it go, but he never let it go. Never let it go.
Well, look, at a certain point, I understand if anybody, we can talk about any player, like you really firmly believe that a player should be picked in a certain range, right? Or is such and such graded talent, whatever it may be, number whatever on your big board. But at a certain point, as Reese and Louis Riddick were saying on the broadcast on Saturday afternoon, the league tells you what they think. And the league doesn't do it for any sort of conspiratorial reason. They're not colluding against Shedeur Sanders or against Deion. They're not doing it. I have a hard time believing those that say, well, because they didn't want to have to deal with Deion. Any owner or GM or head coach worth a tenth of their salary tells Deion to shove it the first time he calls them to complain about how much playing time their kid is getting. Because
he can make a lot of noise, though.
He can make... That's great. Scream into the void. You've got a college team to coach. Go coach it. I'd love to see what would happen had Shedeur Sanders come here and not gotten any playing time the first 7 or 8 weeks, and Deion make a sideways comment at one of his press conferences. What Mike Tomlin would have done to that in one of his press conferences. He wouldn't have appreciated taking the time to do it, but he would have done so. It would have been right up there with there ain't a blank check big enough. When he was talking about being interested in a college job at USC.
Yeah.
Like that, it would have been up there. He would have absolutely buried it. Now, here's the problem. I don't think Stefanski and Barry and Haslam stand a chance against this.
Wait. Did you see Andrew Barry's reaction? He was like, I didn't want this guy.
No, Jimmy Haslam made them do it. I'm not saying that as fact. I'm saying it's my theory. But Jimmy Haslam made them do it. It wouldn't be the first time Jimmy Haslam stepped in and did something that completely screwed the organization. Johnny Football, Deshaun Watson, any number of things, right? Like this guy as an owner is worse than Jerry Jones because he only sticks his nose in at the worst possible time. And when he does, it's for the worst possible acquisitions.
Very like the movie Draft Day. Stuck it in. Very similar. This is what I think what happened with the slide here, or the slide. First of all, I don't think he was talented enough to be put where a lot of people thought he'd be a first or second rounder. Okay, he's a solid third rounder. But then you grab these teams and say, do I want to put up with the potential stuff we were talking about over a third round guy who we don't really need a quarterback right now? So it really tightens the list of who would want him. So I think that's what made him go from like late 2 to 4th was the extracurricular stuff, maybe the stuff his dad said, maybe the possibility if his dad taken over in a year or two or wherever he's drafted. But I think half of it has to do with he just didn't project to be a top 80, 90 pick in the league.
I think it's that simple. I don't even think it has anything to do with any kind of fears about how loud Deion's going to be or how Shedeur is going to handle himself at practice. Like the kid wants to play football in the NFL. If he has any brains whatsoever, he's going to handle himself. And if he doesn't,
he just needs the money.
Okay,
and if he doesn't go out there and if
he doesn't want to handle himself, then bye-bye, which is maybe part of the reason he slides beyond the second and third round, right? But the other part of it is you get into the third round, right? Fourth round. We're talking about a spot where you're not drafting a starting quarterback. You're not drafting a guy who's
right?
You're drafting a backup.
Yeah.
Right. You're drafting a backup. And at that point, you're not worried about drafting a backup quarterback. You'll wait until the 6th round or whatever to draft your backup quarterback, like the Steelers did with Will Howard, right? And that's what this boils down to. This draft was filled with quarterbacks who weren't really first-round talents. Cam Ward ended up going first overall because he was a first-round talent, most people assume. And I think that's, in any other draft, he's probably mid to late first round. Jackson Dart in any other draft is probably early to mid second round, but the Giants traded up because they felt like they had to. And I don't have a problem with that. But this draft was filled with guys, been saying it for months, who just aren't that good, Shedeur Sanders included. And so once you get beyond the point where you would draft an eventual starter, like mid to late second round, you might as well just sit around and wait for the 5th round. I'm not spending a 3rd or 4th round pick on a backup quarterback. And that's exactly what happened. And he would have slid even farther if, like we said, somebody in Cleveland, Jimmy Haslam, wouldn't have walked in and told Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski that they had to take the kid when they did.
Yeah. I mean, they already took Dylan Gabriel, I think, the round before that.
Yeah, which is the other asinine part of this.
If Mike Tomlin spoke glowingly of him in his pre-draft, they had a great meeting. They needed a quarterback, and he was still there in the 4th round, and you're not taking him. Something pretty much solidified that Mike Tomlin was blowing smoke last Tuesday.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in him. They never were. They were never interested in a quarterback until 5th, 6th round.
Yeah.
Because they know who's coming here in a week or two.
Yes. And
they've known that for 2 months now.
And that is the other thing. I can't believe it's taken until April 28th for the rest of the football world, the rest of the sports world, to catch on to what people like you and I have been saying, you especially, I'll give you the credit, for the last month and a half. Rodgers is coming here. He'll get here when he gets here. 99% case that he ends up here. In the 1% case that he doesn't, okay, you have Mason Rudolph, and they're comfortable with Rudolph, which is the other part of the thing, like I mentioned earlier, that I can't still wrap my head around, that the rest of the world wants to just write off Mason Rudolph as if he's not starter capable. But it will be Aaron Rodgers. Might not be until June. Might not be until right before training camp opens. Who knows?
I have a feeling it's going to be before OTAs.
And OTAs are what? The end of middle of May?
No. Mother's Day is rookie mini camp. So
okay.
May 27th. Yes, 27th.
So like Memorial Day weekend.
I had to make an appointment to get a cortisone shot in my knee, and I made it on May 28th, which is a Wednesday, and I had to make sure that when OTA started, and it was the 27th. So there you go. May 27th start of OTAs. 27, 28, 29. Then June, 4, 5, and 6. Then they have mandatory mini camp the week after that, and I think they're done at the 10th or 12th or something like that.
And then they get basically 5-6 weeks off before they got to report to St. Vincent. So that's
he might not take part a lot in OTAs, but I bet I don't know if I'd bet because it's Aaron Rodgers, but I wouldn't be shocked if he showed up or signed within that span over the next
So within the next 4 weeks.
4 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah. That's the thing that I still find hilarious, that people aren't understanding, that the Steelers wouldn't treat the quarterback position this way if they didn't have some level of confidence that Rodgers will be here, and B, that they didn't have some level of confidence in their backup plan if Rodgers does decide to not play football this year. I know they make decisions at times that make you shake your head, but this is not going to be one of them. I don't.
You would be so short-sighted, derelict of duty, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
If you're going into this thing thinking Mason Rudolph's our one and maybe Will Howard was going to be our number 2, which you didn't even know Will Howard was going to be there in the 6th round. You can't expect anything from him this year. And Skylar Thompson or whoever. I've been trying to say for months now, they had maybe not name on paper, but they had a pretty doggone good idea what was happening. And look what the Vikings just traded for now. Who? Sam Darnold?
No, the Vikings traded for Sam Howell. You had it
Sam's
halfway.
Different. Sam. What I'm saying is, obviously, the Vikings. There's no place else for him to go. It's not like he's waiting. He's coming to Pittsburgh, or he's not retiring. I think we're looking at like 99 to 1% right now. So.
Yeah. So that's it. The Shedeur slide, though, and everything it means now in Cleveland is going to be something fun to watch. Like, I'm sorry. As a Steeler fan, watching how things play out between Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel, who just like 2 months ago talked about how he hated cold weather, and Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco.
Flacco has to be the odds-on favorite to start, right?
I would think week 1. I mean,
Flacco, Kenny, Shedeur, and
Gabriel on the practice squad.
4? Are you dumping Flacco because he's ancient? Wow, what a mess.
Dylan Gabriel goes on the practice squad, right? You can get him through the practice squad.
He's a tiny guy, huh?
I mean, he's what, 5'10"? And a lefty to boot. So got to get your receivers to adjust to that as well. Thanks to our good friends at Impact HVAC for supporting the show, by the way. The AC is running beautifully since we got it tuned up a couple weeks ago. God bless you, Kaboom. Way to actually mute your mic. How about that?
I just learned it. I've tried to get out of the way to sneeze.
I'm so proud of you.
Why do I have a feeling this is going to be on a reel and you're going to post it and people are going to say, "Oh, look at him. He's sneezing now. And he's sleepy and sneezy. He could be dopey, too." I could be dopey.
Doc.
Speaking of Doc, Steelers release Ryan Watts because he was informed he probably should not be playing football anymore.
Oh, that's too bad.
Pick last year. That's neck injury.
That's too bad. You hate to hear that for a young guy. But thanks to Impact HVAC. 412-297-1852. Get the AC tuned up now that thing's cranking a little bit more this time of year. Get the furnace checked if that went kaput on you over the winter. Whatever you may need, whether it's an emergency call, it's maintenance, just a checkup. Impact HVAC, 412-297-1852. Or check them out on Facebook, Impact HVAC, PGH. We got to thank them again for their support of Kaboly+Mack, as well as all of you wonderful Yinzers out there who can't wait to go see Kaboly down at the draft next spring. You're excited. I told my kid we're going to take the tee down and we'll wade through the sea of nonsense to see. But here's the thing I can't figure out. Where exactly is it going to take place? Because I've been told different things.
We got a little breaking news real quick.
What happened?
According to Steelers Now, Saunders.
Yeah.
He was snooping through the media guide, and Mike Sullivan is no longer – wait a second. I hope they're not getting Mike Sullivan, the other Mike Sullivan, is no longer on the roster, according to Steelers Now.
So both Mike Sullivans in the city of Pittsburgh have been relieved of their duties? Is that what you're saying? Or are you being trolled?
Well, no, it's definitely him. Steelers assistant coach Sullivan no longer with team.
Wow. Hell of timing there. Both Mike Sullivans getting dumped on the same day.
Yeah, he's not on the official team website anymore, unless it's an oversight or he's gone.
Wow.
Which Sully's a tremendous human being, but what are the odds of both Mike Sullivans being gone at the same time?
It's a bad day to be named Mike Sullivan.
Well, Mike Sullivan was one of those guys that he reminded me of John Mitchell from a couple years ago. They got rid of his position. They got rid of him as in the defensive line coach. John Mitchell brought in Dunbar, but kept him on as some kind of senior assistant.
Yeah.
And when they brought in Tom Arth to replace him as quarterback coach /
the writing was on the wall.
they moved him to a different position that you figured that eventually he was just going to disappear. And Sully was a great guy. Great. He talked to he went to my kid's school a couple years ago.
No way.
And to talk about him, and he was asking questions, and my son's raised his hand and said, "Is TJ Watt mean?" So I said, "Sully, you know that kid that asked you if TJ Watt's mean?" That was my kid. He goes, "Yeah, I told him he's really mean, man. Like the worst human ever." And he starts laughing. You know, Sully, great guy though. But
he did seem like a very good guy.
Really nice.
I'll give him that. So, yep.
Best guy in the world.
But like you said, when Tom Arth was hired, that writing was on the wall. And look, I mean, not you could be a nice guy and still not be the best in the world at your job all the time. Like,
I thought he was pretty good, though.
I thought he was
pretty good. Smart offensive mind, I thought.
But I don't think was necessarily built for bringing along young quarterbacks. Like, building offenses, I think, and executing offenses, but like
he did it with Eli, right? He was
a part of it with Eli, yeah. But I mean, Eli again, talk about shooting lightning bolts out of your arse. Eli had a couple of postseason runs in him.
Yeah, I don't know this. I'm just saying that when Arthur Smith comes on as your OC compared to Matt Canada, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
So maybe Sully's input wasn't needed more or wasn't appreciated. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see all that. So, man, like I said, bad day to be named Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh.
This could have happened. Who knows how long it could have happened ago, but it was Steelers like to do that. You know, they don't announce it. You have to look at their media guide online every once in a while and say, who's missing and who's different. It's like, it's what they do. I don't know.
Well, there you go. Mike Sullivan gone from the Penguins. Mike Sullivan gone from the Steelers.
Derek Shelton's still all around. What is going on here?
I don't know if that even matters.
Colin Holderman's not in the minors. What grade you giving this Steelers draft, by the way?
I'd give it an A-. The only thing I think would have elevated it would have been, again, I'm probably going to end up coming around on it because I'm already coming around on it like a big dumb idiot. But drafting a quarterback late from this group, I wasn't necessarily ecstatic about it. But
I think we can look back and see, you know, Y.A. Black, Will Howard, Carson Bruner, and
Dante Kent.
Those are ones be like, eh. I mean, I can look back in 4 years like, wow, look at those last 4 picks. I mean, obviously anything can happen, but no, those first 4.
You mean the first 3?
First 3 out of the ballpark, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Getting Caleb Johnson where they did was an absolute steal. You could say the same about Jack Sawyer, and we've already been clear about how we like the Derek Harmon pick. So A- right now. I'll reserve judgment to see how the back half of the draft develops, and see where it goes. But that's years down the line. I'm not going to sit here and yell and scream about it like I'm Mel Kiper Jr., you know? Like, it doesn't make a ton of sense to get all pissed about it, or even be ecstatic about it right now. Like, that's the other thing that I don't understand. Like, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about this on Friday, but the people who were already giving the Browns, Mel Kiper is one of the people who did it, but I saw a couple other people gave the Browns like an A+ grade because
I wonder why.
Right, because of the Shedeur Sanders pick, and it's like, wait a second, they traded out of a spot where they could have had a guy that I think a lot of people agree could be a generational talent in Travis Hunter, right? Like that, you trade out of that spot. That immediately disqualifies you from having a quality draft, in my opinion. They should have taken Travis Hunter 2nd overall and just gone on with the rest of their draft.
Yeah, I think you're really going to regret not grabbing Hunter.
Like, think about
then using I like to call him Braunschweiger, whoever it was in the first round, the first pick of the second round, the inside linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting pick too, but just the idea of I don't know how you trade out from a spot where Travis Hunter is just sitting there in your lap. Doesn't make sense at all. But maybe they'll prove us all wrong.
Travis Hunter's probably happy he gets to go to freaking, I guess it's northern Florida and don't pay any state tax.
Yep, goes to Florida, plays for the Jags. They've got a quarterback, at least they think they do, and Trevor Lawrence. They got who's the other receiver? Brian Thomas on the other side.
Yeah, they got two good receivers.
So
should be a quarterback who hasn't won nothing, just like the Justin Herberts of the world.
We'll see. Maybe they win.
Hey, what about your boy Ham? Oh, we talked about that Friday. Hampton getting traded. I mean, getting signed drafted by the Chargers.
You're so out against Najee. It's hilarious.
Wait till he has to go to I don't even know. I can't even think of a crap. Wait till he has to go to Arizona next year.
I mean, it worked for James Conner, I guess.
Is Cordero Patterson still on the team?
Check the depth chart while you're checking things on the depth chart. Make sure he's still around. And I'll tell people that they need to remember to make. I don't think they would have gotten rid of him yet. This does remove the possibility, though, of a random pickup of Nick Chubb, like the Caleb Johnson pick. I think takes that out of the realm of possibility. But whatever. Thanks to First and Goal Sports, firstandgoalsports.com, First and Goal Collectibles at South Hills Village. We have got an autographed Pat Fryermuth helmet, Penn State Pat Fryermuth autographed helmet, sitting and waiting for when we get to 1,500 subscribers on YouTube. We're at 1,200. I think it was 1,200 exactly. I checked this morning.
12.
A little more than that, wasn't it, when I texted you yesterday?
You gotta get people on board. How are you going to get this darn Fryermuth helmet?
Well, if they're not already subscribed, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a friend, be a friend, right? And get your friends, family, loved ones, neighbors on board with Kaboly+Mack as well. Because once we get to 1,500 subscribers, one of those 1,500 subscribers will be randomly drawn and win that autographed Penn State Fryermuth helmet. We are at 1,204 subscribers, which means we still need another 296. Come on, people. Let's go. When we get there, somebody wins the helmet. Let's see what comes first. We get to 1,500 or Rogers signs. What do you think happens?
Or they name the new pope, right? What is that? The black smoke?
White smoke, I think.
I don't know. Smoke. Is it going to come from the Southside facility or the Vatican? Which comes first? I would probably say Southside. Vatican takes a while, doesn't it? Don't they take a while? I
have no idea. Does it take a long time?
I don't know.
The Conclave. Isn't there a show about that now? I saw an ad for it on Netflix or Prime Video or something. Speaking of Netflix, Monday Night Raw tonight. But yeah, if you want the autographed Penn State Pat Fryermuth helmet, by all means, go get subscribed. Once we get to 1,500 on YouTube, it'll be up for grabs. Thanks to First and Goal Collectibles at South Hills Village, firstandgoalsports.com. Heyman, Rollins, Braun Breaker tonight on Monday Night Raw. And we're also supposed to get the man, Becky Lynch, on Monday Night Raw tonight. Plus what?
Mr. Pat McAfee is going to address the Gunther situation.
Ooh. Well, Gunther's been suspended indefinitely, according to Adam Pearce, correct?
Doesn't mean he does not show up. It doesn't mean that he's just not usually if he gets suspended like that, I've seen him on social media. Usually they lay low.
Yeah.
Maybe he's in the back again in part 2. This is where my boy Wade Barrett comes down and helps out, right?
I think it's more than likely we probably get the
I just can't wait to see the advocate, the wise man.
Yeah, I want to see what the angle is this week. I mean, somebody either catches a beat down or somebody else joins the crew. I feel like we're in solid NWO territory now.
They got to be careful. I think you slowly add somebody. I think that, I think Heyman should really go to the angle of Heyman trying to help out the guys that are talented and getting pushed down the rungs, so to speak.
Like the Carry-On Crosses of the world?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a part of that. That tells me something about Logan Paul there, maybe.
Who's also supposed to be on tonight.
I mean, it doesn't have to be now, but Bronson Reed, and whenever he comes back, some of those guys that are talented out the rear end, but really for one reason or not hasn't been able to make that next jump. I like to see Heyman continues to add, but you can't do NWO 57 people.
No.
You have to keep it pretty tight.
We said that last week. I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be Vincent coming out with the NWO or Louis Spicoli or some of the people that they had rolling out with the NWO when it really got way too big for its britches. But like, I think there's some intrigue in Heyman, Rollins, and Breaker coming out every Monday night and either putting a beat down on someone verbally or physically, putting a challenge out to someone, or bringing someone in. Like that's got to be. If that's not the storyline for progressing that group together as a bunch, I don't know what is, because something that's got to push Monday Night Raw forward, especially if Gunther's going to take time off. Be suspended, and if Cody's going to take time off as well, which it looks like might be a thing. He was not there on Friday night. Then you got to have something to carry you through the next month or two before you start the slow build towards SummerSlam in August. So that's got to be the storyline, I think, on Monday nights.
A pet peeve of mine? That everybody in the company does not pronounce Gunther's name right. Some call him Gunther, some call him Gunther. Which one is it?
It's Gunther.
Don't tell me it's both. I hate when people say when people say, "Hey, like Kenneth Gainwell." Hey, you go by Kenny, Kenneth, Ken. I don't care. No, there has to be a preference.
Maybe.
Then that's when he said, "You can call me Kenny G."
Kenny G. Okay. Yeah. So there you go. That's his preference.
How many people you think who watching this know who Kenny G is?
Kenny G, like
we probably have an older audience, maybe
the jazz musician Kenny G, like the alto sax, like no, I'd say most of our audience
the perm hair,
has an idea of who Kenny G, the saxophone.
I probably don't know one Kenny G song.
I remember my mom had a Kenny G CD when I was little, and she'd listen to it. I thought
my dad used to listen to Aaron Neville. You remember Aaron Neville?
My grandmother hated Aaron Neville because he'd do that thing with his voice where he go, like his what do they call it? Vibrato or false? I can't remember what the term is. He'd make his voice like, and she hated that. With that big
goiter on his face.
Yeah. My grandmother was one of the nicest people in the world. That was the only person she didn't like was Aaron frickin' Neville.
I mean, it's strange.
It is strange.
And picking out Aaron Neville because he sings weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe he's the nicest human being ever. Is he still alive?
I don't think so. I think he passed.
Aaron Neville's alive.
Oh no, I don't think he is. I think he passed away a few years ago, didn't he?
I'm saying you're wrong.
Oh, he is still alive. I'm so sorry to Aaron Neville and his entire family.
He's 84.
Wow. Still got. Good for him.
You remember the wrestler Neville? Is that his name?
Yeah,
I do. His knee and kept wrestling. That was a couple years ago. That was like 10 years ago.
Anyway, that's going to do it for today's episode. Kaboom, congratulations to you on getting through like 8 minutes of Mike Sullivan talk, not the quarterback's coach, but the Penguins' former coach. Wednesday, I texted Yoey. He's very busy this morning. Didn't text
he was already complaining to me this morning
about having to work.
No, about the breaking news coming out of Sully, not the work, but the some of the guys on whatever the Crowley.
I don't know what you're trying to say. I have no idea.
The Crowley Doran report that this was he went in with a checklist, which some people are now denying, and Crowley and Doran said it's true.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, the Pens are walking back on it, so who knows what to really believe.
I mean, I wouldn't blame Mike Sullivan if he walked in and said, "Hey, I need A, B, and C."
Well, when you're like the Penguins are saying, no, this did not happen. Of course, they're going to say it's not happened. Doesn't mean it didn't.
Does it really matter how it happened? Given that I think all sides agree that it's probably best for Sully that he moves on, and it's probably best for the Penguins that they find a different head coach at the point in the development of the roster where they are.
Maybe we get Sully on.
Sure. Sure.
We can find somebody. We're going to have to start hitting some guests again, huh? We got some.
I mean, you were supposed to have a couple people lined up, and I don't know what happened.
I'm still looking. I'm still kidding.
Keep working on
it. Well, I got the one we were talking about, but I don't know when you want to do that. We're this is behind the scenes stuff. We're pulling back the curtains.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, we'll get Mel Kiper on. How about that? Sound good?
What's Joey Jr. doing, man? I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Is that Joey Porter Jr.?
Probably.
I think you're going to have a good season, Joey Jr.
Yeah, I think so too. You can always, rewind it to the beginning of the show, Joey, and you won't miss a thing. So Wednesday, we'll do it again. Wednesday, the schedule's going to be out soon too, Kaboom. So we'll have to talk about that as well. May 14th, I think they said. So we'll probably start to get that in drips and drabs over the next couple of weeks.
Maybe
it all sets up for actually a very busy May. The schedule, post-draft stuff, then the schedule, then we'll get Rodgers signing.
In June, OTAs.
Yep.
Then middle of June.
It'll be July, and training camp will be here.
Mid-June, you cut it off. The only time the NFL really has an off season is like mid-June to mid-July. 4th of July, everything starts to slowly start creeping around. Then before you know it, it's over. Leaves are falling. Snow's coming.
Aaron Rodgers is slinging the ball all over the North Shore.
Steelers win a Super Bowl.
All right, let's pump the brakes. That'll wrap it up for today. Thanks again to everybody for supporting the show. All of our sponsors, First and Goal Sports, Impact HVAC, Nail Studio 2. Get out there and get mom taken care of for Mother's Day. Southwest Greens, and of course, our good friends at the Dan Heck Team, heckteamhomes.com, our supporting sponsors, or our presenting sponsors here on Kaboly+Mack. We'll do it again Wednesday. If you missed anything, go back on YouTube and watch it again. We appreciate it as always. All of you, fantastic. By the way, Yinzers everywhere. Table, ladders, and chairs match on SmackDown Friday night. There was a Penguins shirt in the front row. Yinzers everywhere. Pittsburgh everywhere.